is artwork made from clay. So there are artists that specifically work with clay. They're called ceramicists. And there are two different ways that artists can create works out of clay, make ceramic pieces. One is exactly how you made your piece. It's called hand built. You made that project using your hands. And yes, maybe some tools, but you didn't use any machines to help you. The other method would be using a potter's wheel. Has anybody heard or seen a potter's wheel? So it spins, you have that wet clay in the middle, and as it's spinning, use your hands to help shape that clay. So that wheel is also working and helping you to make that piece. So it's not just hand built, you're using that potter's wheel. That's another form or way to make projects. For us, we just did hand building. And because it's made out of clay, it is called a ceramics project. Your clay that we worked with for your project, it had water in it. It was easy to bend and mold and attach pieces together. It had to sit for 2 weeks for a lot of that moisture to evaporate. 2-3 weeks later, all the moisture possible to evaporate has evaporated from your clay. At that point, your clay is called greenware. It's as dry as it's going to get before it gets fired. If I took your greenware cupcakes, not fired yet, and I put them in a bucket of water, they would absorb the water and turn back into mushy clay. Instead, I took your greenware, your dried clay, and I put it in the kiln. Kiln is a special oven used to bake clay at very high temperatures, so you couldn't bake this clay at in your oven at home. You need high temperatures like 1800 degrees to get whatever remaining moisture's in there out of the clay. Once it is fired one time, it's no longer called greenware, it's called bisqueware. And that's what your clay is right now. It's called bisqueware. It is white, no longer gray clay, and it's stone-like. It's hard. If you were to put your bisqueware in a bucket of water, it would absorb some water, but that water would evaporate and it would still stay hard like a stone. That's where it is right now. Now, we have to finish it. And there's a couple different ways that artists could finish clay. For us, we're going to be using glaze. Yeah, glaze. Some artists use paint, some may draw on them. We're using glaze. Glaze is it'll end up looking like a glass-like coating on your project. Can you slide me that whole project tray, the whole black tray, the whole black tray, the whole black tray. Thank you. Thanks. Glaze. This is what your project will look like after the second firing. Second firing is the glaze firing. So the glaze that you will put on your projects is in liquid form right now. You're gonna paint it on. And it looks kind of chalky, pastel colors, but after I fire it, this is what they will look like. So if this is not the green that you were thinking of for your frosting or your wrapper, maybe you wanna switch to a different color. Because you're just using the colors that I have. I don't have any additional colors. They're all on this board. We have the frosting and wrapper and topping colors. And then down here, your cake flavors are listed. So brown glaze for chocolate, tan glaze for your vanilla cake, and then this red velvet flavor that I mixed together for you. So I want to go through what is on your tray and how you're going to use those supplies to glaze your project. So you are glazing in a specific order. You have two pieces that you will be glazing. You have the base of your project, which contains two things. The base includes cake all the way around the edge. Remember when we made this? We pinched that clay so that the clay would rise past the silicone wrapper mold that we used. That's the cake rising like it would in the oven. That's cake too. So the inside and the top edge of the base, that's the cake part. Wrapper, past the cake all the way down to the bottom, that's your wrapper. So the base has two parts, cake and wrapper. The top has two parts, frosting and toppings. And maybe for you, maybe it's just frosting. You are going to be glazing in a certain order. There are plates on the tray. This is your palette where your glaze will be located. You're using brushes from the basket to pick up the glaze and paint from here. We're not picking up glaze from those cups. There are 12 cups in this tray, liquid forms of glaze. So let's say, what are you starting with? What's the first thing that you're gonna glaze? Yeah, what's the first thing? What's the first thing that you're going to glaze?
The cupcake glazing.
The cake part of the base. So these are your options. Brown for chocolate, tan for vanilla, red velvet color for red velvet. I mixed together this color and it's in a container on the supply table. If that is the color, the cake flavor you want, you will take your plate with you to the supply table. You will scoop that color onto your plate. What size amount are you scooping onto your plate? Quarter size. Quarter size amount of glaze, bring it back to your table, and then you are adding glaze inside, that's cake, and the top edge, that is cake. To scoop, colors from the tray. So let's say I need this tan color for my vanilla cake. You will lift the cup out of the tray, bring it to you. Glaze is the most expensive material that you will use in class, so I don't keep a lot of extra of it. If you scoop while everything's in the tray and bring it to, it's gonna drop into another cup. And then we're cross-contaminating colors. I don't have enough backup glaze to be able to dump this whole cup out and refill it again because drops of other colors have gotten in there. So you need to remove it. Once you remove it, you will see in the bottom, this would be great for that app, at the bottom of the tray, tan is written there for my tan colored glaze. So when you're done, you wanna make sure you put it back on that label so the next person knows it's the color that they want. And I'm saying that because like purple and pink in liquid form, they look very similar. You want to make sure that you're getting the correct color. So you bring it to you, scoop with the stick, that's why the stick's in there, tap it onto your plate, size of a quarter. You are gathering glaze as you work on each step. So I've glazed the cake and the top edge. What is next? What am I doing next, Deb?
The cupcake frosting.
The frosting. You're switching to the top part of your project. For the frosting, you're going to set this on your newspaper. Please work over your newspaper. That's why it's there, to keep the table clean. You're setting this on the newspaper. You are glazing everything above the newspaper. You are not glazing inside the frosting. You are not glazing this bottom edge. I'm gonna set this directly on the kiln shelf. The glaze, it's gonna melt to turn into that glass-like state. It's gonna stick to the shelf. And I have to break it, and you no longer have a piece. So no glaze should touch the edge that's touching your newspaper. Everything above the newspaper you can glaze. So frosting, we added the wonderful texture to our frosting, which means you need to take that brush, get a good scoop of glaze on your brush, and push it into all the little nooks and crannies. The glaze melts, but it's not gonna ooze into all those sections. You have to get a brush in there. Any visible white clay that you can see after glazing is going to stay white clay. So you want to get all those spaces with your glaze. Clean my brush. You're cleaning in between each step. Clean my brush. What's the next thing I'm going to glaze? What's 3? Yeah. The wrapper, I go back to the base. Same thing as frosting. You are glazing everything above the newspaper. Do not put glaze on the bottom. This is going on the shelf. If there's glaze, it'll stick. I have to break it to remove it. You no longer have a piece. So you're going nice clean edge next to the cake down to where the newspaper is. Then this piece is done. What's last? What's last? Yeah, Hazel. The toppings. So back to wrapper, about a nickel size. It's smaller than the frosting and the cake part, so it's a little bit less glaze. Toppings, those amounts are going to be different for everyone. If you have teeny tiny little sprinkles, you're probably just gonna take this color, bring it, and just lightly tap on your paper or your paper plate because it's not gonna take a ton of glaze. This is going in the garbage. This tray of colors is not leaving your table. So small amount, and if you need more, you scoop it on your plate. But I don't wanna see plates full of glaze going in the garbage because that's a lot of money going in the garbage. So make sure you're just scooping small amounts and you're scooping colors as you need them. You're not gonna get through toppings today. So don't scoop every single color on your plate today. You're scooping it as you need it, as you're ready for it. So brushes, there's 2 different sizes for each of you. A medium-sized brush and then a small brush to get maybe into little nooks and crannies, and then this will be good for smaller toppings. most of the day today, most of the time you're gonna use this medium brush to get these larger spaces, but small ones are there if you need it. There's also a reference page with steps and amounts and how much you're using. If you don't or can't see the board and you want this next to you, same information. That is on the tray as well. Take a look at that tray. See what it looks like right now. That's what it should look like at the end of class, minus the plates. The plates will go in the garbage. So you have tray of glazes. I'm going to remove the bags. There will be no bags on them. You have the board with all the sample tiles, basket of brushes. Everything should be like this at the end of class. Newspaper, if it's messy, will get thrown out. And if it's clean, will go on the cart. So you have 2 pieces of your project in the tray. Let's get all of those out before you take your plan papers. Now, plan papers, that's what you picked when we planned the initial project. If you want to switch anything, go for it. I'm not collecting that plan paper. So if you want to switch colors, it doesn't matter to us. Just pick what you think you want now that you've seen the sample tiles. That is fine. But we only have today and next week to do this. So if you are absent today or next week, and you don't glaze the whole thing, I'm still firing your project. There may be spots that are empty white clay. You can paint them, you can color on them, but I can't wait any longer to fire your projects. So it is what it is after next week. Okay, carefully remove your projects and your plan. You guys can get started.